If you're wondering who the 2022 Jaguars are, I'm going to tell you exactly what their identity is, and I'll do it here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Birddogs, the most comfortable shorts, pants, and sweatpants with built-in liners. Go to birddogs.com, use promo code Locked On, and boom, a free Birddogs rope hat with your pair of Bird Dogs. What is going on, good people? Tony Wiggins here with Locked On Jaguars as I clear my throat real quick. And there you go. Done. Hopefully we won't have any more problems with that. Who are the Jaguars in 2022? 6 games in, what is the identity of the football team? I'll give you that information here today and give you my spin on it. I'm going to talk about the fact that we need to just accept Doug Pederson for who he is. There's been a lot of talk about adjustments and game plans. That ain't going to happen. A team only establishes an identity when someone is consistently themselves. And I don't want Doug to change, and I don't want him to adapt. I want the players to play better, or I want him to find people who can do what he wants to do. There's not one guy on that team that's responsible for a Super Bowl trophy. There is a guy on the sideline, though, that knows what it takes to win, and that's who I would choose for the Jaguars to follow behind, and not the other way around. I'm going to talk about the difference between pressures and sacks. A lot of folks talking about how the Jags need more edge rush. When just a week ago, 2 weeks ago, Josh Allen was second in the league in pressures, and Trayvon Walker, according to one stat I saw, actually leads all rookies in pressures. I'm going to tell you something about this past week's game that identifies the fact that they weren't the problem. Winning games when you are better and healthier. The Jaguars have lost 2 games in a row to teams that they should have beat. They're a better team, more talented team, at pretty much the same stage of development than the Houston Texans. And the Colts weren't healthy. They lost to the Colts without Jonathan Taylor and without Shaquille Leonard. I'll tell you why those 2 things are really, really problematic moving forward for the Jaguars. But back up top, we're going to talk about this identity and tell you who I think the Jaguars are. You ready for the drum roll? The Jaguars are a 2-4 football team. That's who they are. They're a team without an identity. And the reason why I say they don't have an identity is because if you pay attention to it, they've managed to lose 4 games all in a different way. Even a bad team with an identity can at least find a way to lose all the games the same way. Because then you can identify, you say, well, ain't nothing we can do about it. We just ain't good enough. The Jaguars were 1-15 2 years ago, and they lost all the games the exact same way for the most part. And you knew what it was. They were just devoid of talent. How Eddie Murphy said in the movie Life, there's just a total lack of talent. There's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. That's the problem. Last year, I think they lost all of the games they lost last year the same way. They lacked competence, and they were inexperienced and young. This year's a little bit different, man. They've come from behind and taken the league back only to relinquish it. They lost because they turned the ball over a whole bunch of times, and still it was in a one-score game. The one common theme here is they keep losing a bunch of one-score games, but none of the games look alike. They dominated the game statistically against the Colts, well, at least a little bit, because Matt Ryan had like 7,000 yards passing, but they didn't have any running, any yards rushing. The Jaguars had balance, completed 90% of their passes, no turnovers, and had 200 yards rushing, and lost. They find new ways to win. And when you keep finding new ways to win, that means you don't know who you are. Every single week, it's something. For all those people that want Doug Pederson to constantly sit here and change who he is and don't do this and don't do that, I'm going to tell you something. This is what we're going to talk about in this first segment before we get to the other stuff. You're wrong. And I'm not saying that just because a guy won a Super Bowl, we shouldn't question it, although that would be a pretty good reason not to. Okay. But people do it all the time. People question championship pedigree coaches and players all the time. And I understand it because of what we do. I've even done it to a certain degree. But if the Jaguars as an organization don't know how to win, I don't think in the media or fans that we know what to expect or know how to win either. When you look at the fans, the players, and the coaching staff, there's one guy, two really, that know how to win. It's Mike Caldwell and Doug Pederson. They've done it. There's nobody else in that organization that has done anything. And there might be a player or two that won a Super Bowl. I don't know. But I'm talking about in the leadership position. And I could only imagine what it's like to hear from a lot of people constantly saying what I need to do when I've actually done it at a higher level and been successful at it than anybody else. It comes with the territory. I'm not talking about what people are allowed to say. So you don't have to tell me that it comes with the territory. I understand that. I'm not talking about what you're allowed to do or what you have the freedom of doing. I'm talking about how much sense it makes and how much sense it would make for him to even pay attention to it and actually listen to and do. I'm going to give you a perfect scenario. They need to run the ball more. They did it. Trevor needs to take checkdowns. They did it. They need not to turn the ball over. They did it. And they still lost. They did that too. My thing is they have to grow up and become an identity and be the same team every single week. It doesn't mean that you're going to go through and do the same things every single week, but at the very least, have a consistent effort of who you are every single week and hope that that is good enough for everybody else. I'm going to tell you what's happened. Teams have watched tape. Teams have watched tape, and teams are not going to sit here and do the same things that these other teams did to lose. Doug Pederson said it yesterday, and I think the vernacular that he was talking in his interview was, look, if you're a player who didn't play well, guess what? Teams are going to circle this, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said they're going to come back and they're going to try to do the same thing these other teams did. It's a copycat league that way. To me, that's telling me that number 26 is going to have a bullseye on his back. To me, that's telling me that Devin Lloyd and Foye Oluwakan are going to have to start chasing people across formations because teams are going to run drag routes and try to get them moving sideways as opposed to just letting them sit back and react to what they see in front of them. To me, teams are going to continue to try to get guys in one-on-one situations, backs, wide receivers, or whoever. Now, there's a common theme like between the Washington game and the game the other day. Guys just weren't tackling. They did it against Philly, too. Open field tackling has been a serious problem for this team. There's something else that has been a real big problem, and no one's talking about it. Folks just want to talk about everything on the edge. They want to attribute pass rush to guys coming off the edge and turning the corner. It's not always the case. It's football 101. Football 101 tells you, especially in the case of Matt Ryan, a guy who's a stationary target, and I know folks want to make a big deal out of the fact that the young king the other day, Trayvon Walker called Matt Ryan a sitting duck, which he did not lie. Matt Ryan is a bit of a sitting duck. That's no lie at all. So I don't really see what the problem was, except that it was bulletin board material. And in fact, Matt Ryan was probably like, you're right, I'm a sitting duck. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to get rid of this ball in 3 steps. And I'm going to find out if your guys know how to tackle. I'm going to tell you what the Jaguars didn't do the other day that most people are missing when they talk about this team and when they talk about the things that the Jaguars did not do well the other day. And I'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. I want to tell you guys about Birddogs. Man, I got a pair of shorts and a pair of sweatpants with liners in them, get me ready for the fall, and they are the truth. Birddogs just launched sweatpants. They're super comfortable, like that cute little Charmin bear rubbing up against your thighs. You know that comfy little bear feeling, that little bear family. That's right. Birddogs pants are perfect for golf. You might not like to play tiger on a bender, but you'll feel just as good. Bird Dog joggers are higher quality than Lululemon and $20 less. What are we talking about here? Go buy some Bird Dogs. If you still wear shorts in the winter, like we do here in Florida, it doesn't matter if it's Florida or 10 degrees in New England or Chicago. They have the signature shorts with built-in liners, the most comfortable shorts in existence. Now, I got them in the mail, right? So I put them on, and I ain't going to lie to you. Felt pretty good all up on my skin now. I ain't gonna lie, man. Those Bird Dog shorts are the absolute truth, and you're gonna actually love them. In the sweatpants, they have a nice taper fit, and they feel real good as well. Go to birddogs.com, enter the promo code Locked On, and they'll throw in a free Bird Dogs rope hat. That's birddogs.com, promo code Locked On, and boom, a free Bird Dogs rope hat with all your stuff inside, the pants, the shorts, and everything else that you order. The most comfortable shorts, pants, and sweatpants with built-in liners. You will not take these things off. I promise you. All right, man, I'm going to tell you guys about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the cold-hearted truth, and you guys know that I've told you that my daughter, when she was getting out of the military, put her profile in on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn's folks hooked her up with the right type of people, with the right companies, and boom, she had a job when she got out of the military the first day off of active duty. If you have a company, you want that same type of action, what you need to do is place your company on LinkedIn, right? You have to place your company on LinkedIn, then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. What's going to happen is, man, they're going to link you in with some of the millions of people daily that are looking for jobs, and there's going to be right in the same career field where you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. There's nothing wrong, man, with finishing strong when it comes to the hiring process. It's going to be everything right when you get the right type of people in, especially in small businesses. I've had 2 small businesses, and I also have used LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified applicants you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, man. The only thing applies here is that you tune in daily here on the Locked On Jaguars podcast, making us your first listen. And we really, really appreciate you, reminding you that we are free on all platforms. Something else is free, man. A little game I want to give y'all. I want to give y'all a little free game. The free game comes in the form of something I've heard before in the draft process and the free agency process. And when I've talked to coaches and when I've talked to GMs, tell you what, sit down with a coach and talk about pass rush. And then I want you to mention the word sacks. And I want you to wait until they look you in your eye. And it'll take them all or less than 10 seconds to tell you that's not that important. I remember Dana Stubblefield, the late Dana Stubblefield back in the day, had 14 sacks, became a free agent. Washington gave him all the money. And they found out what Dana Stubblefield did was he didn't play the run. He just sold out to get sacks. Bobby McCray left the Jaguars once with 10 sacks, signed a big free agency deal to go and play for the Saints. He never lived up to his contract. You know why? Because numbers might not lie, but they don't tell the whole truth. Just 2 weeks ago, Josh Allen for your Jacksonville Jaguars was second in pressures in the NFL. And from what I read this morning, Trayvon Walker is first in rookies in pressures. I saw the game the other day. I watched Trayvon Walker get a holding penalty on the very first drive. That amounts to a sack because it sets the team back 10 yards. I saw other plays where Matt Ryan had to get rid of the ball quickly whenever he tried to hold on to it after the 3-step drop. I've seen other times where guys come up the field, don't take the whole long route around, and folks confuse this to just being a bull rush when it isn't. But what it is it's more of a less a gap and hole where they try to force the quarterback to step up into a pocket and don't give him a lane to run. Here's what happens when your pocket doesn't get collapsed from the inside. The quarterback actually steps up, and he's as comfortable as you are when you get up in the middle of the night to go get a glass of milk. And that's the problem. The problem is the Jaguars, unless they blitz people in the A gap, they're not getting pressure from the inside guys. Some of that can be attributed to the fact that Folo Fadukazi has missed time with a quad injury. If you notice, and John Shipley pointed this out from SI, John Shipley pointed this out, is that this week they played Corey Peters at nose tackle as opposed to N, who was taking Fadukazi's place, whereas last week they left Devon Hamilton in the middle. The reason why is, I think instead of Devon Hamilton having nose responsibilities, they wanted Devon Hamilton to be able to get after it a little bit from the defensive end position. Didn't necessarily happen. And Corey Peters ain't going to give you much as a pass rusher from the inside. This leaves the onus on Roy Robinson Harris to do more than bat balls down. And that is not what is happening. That, to me, is the part of this team that needs improving on defense. They don't need to get another pass rusher unless it's depth. And you can always draft a guy or sign a guy in free agency the same way they did Arden Key this year. But they definitely don't need to make a trade. And I'm not saying they won't, but they don't need to make a trade for somebody that's going to cost a first-round pick and $100 million. They have a rookie pass rusher. Now, you could make the argument to me that, okay, let's just put Trayvon Walker and start training him up. He's 272 pounds. Put 10 pounds on him in the offseason and let him play that Roy Robinson Harris position and then get another end on the other side. If that's what you want to do, fine, but you're asking the same people that picked the guy and said that he was going to be an edge rusher to admit that he ain't. And that's not going to happen. Does he need to engage a little bit more? Does he need to come up with more moves? Yeah, but the last thing he needs to do is start spinning towards the inside and not put contain on the outside. I think it's a schematic issue. I think it's a coaching issue. I think it's a little bit of a personnel issue as to why these guys are not necessarily getting home, combined with the fact that they need to do a little bit better job of disengaging and getting there. Lost in all of this that nobody's talking about is Josh Allen. If we're really going to look at numbers, why isn't anybody screaming, why does Josh Allen not have more sacks? It's because you see him flashing and you understand that the last 2 weeks with that Mills kid in Houston and with Matt Ryan, that ball came out quick. You weren't sacking those dudes. That ball got out of there, man. And I think when you watch the game, folks have to know. But one thing I will tell you is this. Mills is younger and can move around. Matt Ryan can't. Matt Ryan was too comfortable in the pocket the other day, and it had nothing to do with the guys on the edge. It had everything to do with the fact that the middle of the field was not collapsed, the middle of the line. And granted, the middle of the coach line is their strength. The weakness is their tackles. There wasn't a job done good enough, and there was no pressure. And I understand why you won't blitz, because he was throwing those little shallow crosses and making the linebackers move side to side. Those guys have to actually take better angles also. I'm going to give you a silver lining in the third and final segment. I know it doesn't sound like there is one, but there is. But I mainly want to talk more about their identity and why they have to be consistent with who they are, good or bad. And I'm going to tell you why it's important, why these last 2 losses really, really, really hurt the fans the most. And these are the ones that kind of get under your skin a little bit. And I get why they get under your skin a little bit. They should get under your skin, because the bottom line is it was a very, very winnable game. I got to let you know about NFL Key Predictions. And we thank you for making us your first listen again every day. Make sure you check out NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. Locked On's local experts give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football, plus betting advice from the field's leading experts, BetOnline. Follow NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. All right, third and final segment coming up here on Locked On Jaguars. We're going to tap in a little bit more of what this identity is all about and the lack of it and why it's such a big, big issue here with your Jacksonville Jaguars. I want to tell you about PrizePicks first, man, because I've been so close. I have actually won some, but I've been so close because I just keep making the wrong selection when it comes to yards. I actually had a ticket last week. I lost by 1.5 yards. You would not believe it. 1.5 yards. The guy actually got it, but then there was a penalty and they took it away. And what it is daily fantasy where you have entries. Those entries have player projections. For instance, would Justin Herbert throw over this amount of yards last night? Would it be more or less? You have to pick whether it was more or less. They give you a number and you decide whether it's more or less. And if you pick 2 to 5 players they'll score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projection that is available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport you watch. That includes NFL, NBA, which starts today, MLB, the pennant is going on, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, all kinds of stuff, including Euro basketball and even cricket. That's right, cricket. Interest can be made in 60 seconds or less, and it's just that easy. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That means if you deposit 100, PrizePicks will give you 100. If you deposit 50, you get 50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of Locked On Jaguars Daily Podcast, where it's your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen. All right, Jags got an identity problem. Who are they? They're 2-4. That's who they are. Why are they 2-4? Well, it's a number of reasons. And one of the main reasons that bothers me is when trying to figure out what the problem is with the team, if you look at the losses and evaluate the losses, you can't put your finger on it. And the reason why you can't put your finger on it is because it's different every time. And the reason why it's different every time is because they don't have an identity. Identity is not just how you win. Identity is how you lose. Because once you identify why you're losing, that makes it easier to go fix it. But when you lose a bunch of different ways, it just seems like it's Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And then you have the folks who have the losing hangover. They'll say, same old Jaguars, nothing's going to ever change. Why can't we have good things? And that's what you're going to get. You're going to start to get that apathy built up. And folks are just going to think that you're henpecked in the wrong way. Folks are just going to think that, oh, well, nothing good will ever happen. Jags being Jags. When really you have to dissect the problem. One thing I don't have a problem with is Doug Pederson and his aggressive style. He won a Super Bowl doing that. That's just who he is. If it works, he's a genius. If it doesn't work, he's not a genius. It ain't like he's Brandon Staley or nothing, right? Who only has to kick. The only reason that Brandon Staley had to try to kick field goals in the Monday night game, and his kicker was hurt. Isn't that irony? You don't want to use your kicker when you're supposed to, but he's hurt. Now you have to use him when he can't kick, but he actually made the kicks. So Doug Pederson isn't that. There was a point in the game the other day, and I said they're starting to be defined about what they can't do. He didn't go for a 50-yard field goal that I thought he should have gone for. But then I thought, well, maybe he doesn't think his guy can make it from 50. That's what they have to fix. They have to eventually get people where they have the confidence that they're going to make those field goals. And if you miss that field goal and you give the coach good position, field position, and they're shredding your defensive backs, you're just begging to lose the game, right? So I really, really do believe that the problem is that they don't necessarily have an identity. A case in point where they don't have an identity. You have to win games where you are better and more talented than the other team. They lost against Houston. And then you have to win games when you play against the team and their two best players who you had just played against 4 weeks earlier and blanked them don't even play. Jonathan Taylor did not play, and Shaquille, formerly known as Darius Leonard, did not play on defense for the Colts, and the Jags still lost. The alarming thing about that is if you can't beat teams that you're supposed to beat, then you're less likely to beat teams that are equal to you. And then you're really going to have a problem and struggle with teams that are better than you. And that's why you start looking at the schedule now and you're going, can they beat Denver, who's got their own set of problems? I don't know. Can they beat the Giants, Who knows if they can beat the Giants and upset the Giants? The Giants, I tell you what, the Giants are playing with an identity. And this is the point that I keep making. Every game that they played this year has been ugly schmuggly. In a phone booth, behind a nasty nightclub in the worst neighborhood of town. And they've come out victorious 5 out of 6 times. And even when they lost, they still ugly the game up. That's who they are. They're going to ugly the game up. And come Sunday, we're going to find out. Interesting matchups come Sunday. I'm going to talk about this tomorrow. Rookies, the rookie matchups. First time you can sit stuff side by side. You can sit it side by side. You're going to get Trayvon on one side against Evan Neal against Kayvon Thibodeau going against our guys. And you're going to be able to see these guys side by side. Now, remember what I told you in segment 2. Pressures are just as good as sacks when it comes to coaches. Because sometimes you can get a sack by being Johnny on the spot. That's what happened with Aiden Hutchinson. Even though he's played well, he had 3 sacks in one game. He didn't beat one person to get those sacks. He just kept moving, and the guy ran back into him all 3 times. It's the truth. Go watch the tape. They got to find an identity, man. But I don't expect this team to have Doug Pederson change who he is. I want this team to adopt to more who Doug Pederson is, as opposed to Doug Pederson changing to be who this team is. Make sure you check out the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. It's on Odyssey, YouTube, and it is absolutely fabulous because Brian Peacock is one of the best at it, and Matt Williamson is too, and he's a former NFL scout, and you get a perspective from both of those guys that you can't get anywhere else. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. And make it your second listen after you make Locked On Jaguars your first listen. All right, man. Until tomorrow, where we're going to talk about those rookies. And come Thursday, we got a crossover. And I'm going to have to make sure I hold myself together because it's with Patricia Traynor. And we are buddies. And you guys will enjoy that on Thursday. And then, of course, on Friday, we'll do our predictions and give you a score prediction. So make sure you tune in and Locked On Jaguars the rest of the week. And remember, the word of the day is identity. Whether you win or lose, you got to be who you are every single time. Take care of each other, man. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Locked On Jaguars.